So who is your ideal franchise owner? If you were going to sort of share with me what the traits are to be successful.
Sure, sure. So, I think in a large part, it's really someone who values, who really sort of, appreciates and understands what we kind of call the service profit chain. So, really, really important to create, a remarkable experience. Really important to take great care of your staff, making sure that they're really supported from a training standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, from a development standpoint. And the more that you're able to support and set them up for success and morale is high, that really is just going to transition beautifully and naturally to your clientele. They're going to have a great experience, that they're going to feel that hospitality. The team is really, making them feel welcome, those connections. And then from there, really, the profits just come. So someone who really sorts of, understands and feels the importance and the value of taking great care of your team, I think is a really big thing for us. We're definitely looking for someone who has experience in, sort of working directly with, or excuse me, let's scratch that.
Yeah,
That
sure. You got
isn't really
that.
going.
Got it.
And then I think, probably the other, thing that we're finding that is pretty common in a lot of the people that we're attracting is, those in which, who really are passionate about helping people feel confident in their own skin, helping people find a great alternative to, exposing themselves to the sun and things like that, because really we're all about encouraging, better and healthier habits, and so I think that, someone who really feels a lot of fulfillment to, bringing this to their community, understands the power of how, some small aesthetic changes can really enhance the way that you look, but also create this unbelievable amount of confidence. And so, really, I think that, really feeling, connecting strongly with that is a why, and something that feels really fulfilling to them is definitely a big part of, who we're aiming to attract as well.
Sure. And I would imagine that you really try to translate that during training, right? Where you really want to get people to buy into the culture or really what you're about.
Training is definitely a part of it too, but I think that we currently, when we're being approached by different candidates, we're taking them through a pretty comprehensive due diligence process.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we're being, very, very clear about, sort of what are our core values, what are our standards, what do we believe are big drivers in making these units successful. And so I think that we're really aiming to really drive that home. And so we're learning a lot about, sort of what resonates with people and what doesn't. And so we learn a lot about our candidates and hopefully them about us and our team, before we even get to a place where an agreement is signed and training is on the
Right.
forefront.
No, absolutely right. No, it does start in the sales process. What's maybe a big misconception that you deal with when candidates call and are interested in learning more? What's maybe something that's most common?
Sure. So I think that, there are similar concepts out there who are advertising a little bit more of a set it and forget it model
Mm-hmm.
with airbrush tanning. And so, while yes, our operations are incredibly simplified, and that's a huge opportunity, especially when you compare us to, some of these other, very successful, concepts, but that just have so much more complexity or sophistication for a lot of reasons. At the same time, we are a customer facing business. And so we truly believe internally that, that success is not really just train your team. And then, that's sort of it. Having a strong management team, having a present and an active owner manager is I think a huge key to success. So that's a question that we sort of get a lot. And while of course we know the answer isn't what everyone wants to hear, right? We all want to just be able to invest our money and just let it work for us. But there is a little bit more involved, and we like to be really upfront and honest about that. And so I think that's probably a common misconception that we're seeing in airbrush tanning and in some beauty as well.
Yeah, there's really no such thing as a passive investment.
I would like to, yeah, exactly. For someone who disagrees, I would like to hear what that example is, and I would like to invest in it.
Yeah, there's certainly no such thing as a passive franchise that I've ever run across, for sure. It takes a lot of hard work.
It does. It does. And but with the right franchisee or right franchisor, excuse me, there can be a tremendous amount of support, and it really
Yeah.
can be a partnership. And then of course we've heard, lots of examples of franchisors who are kicking off way too early. They still don't have a lot of things figured out. They don't have a lot of operating experience like we have, and then they're trying to grow fast, and then they have a whole new set of issues. So I can understand that there's a lot to consider and a lot to learn about and evaluate if you're new to the franchising world and interested in investing.
Yeah. Well, actually, that brings me back to something you said earlier about your company-owned location. So you mentioned before we got started that you were getting ready to open your third company-owned location. I'm curious on what your take is on your strategy go forward. Do you have intentions of opening additional company-owned locations and having a dual strategy, or is this it for you at 3? What are some of your thoughts on that, Lauren?
Oh yeah, I have very strong thoughts on that.
Good. All right.
I love that you asked. We are not interested in opening more company-owned locations. I understand the strategy, and I think there are a lot of different ways to do it. For me, I think that I've always sort of tried to grow this business from a place of entrepreneurship, ownership. Franchising is not easy, right? So how do we be as focused and really position ourselves to be as successful as possible? Let's not add complexity and a million different revenue streams from the get-go. So I feel pretty strongly that we will be successful by pouring all of our resources and know-how into supporting our franchisees, and as a result, our organization as a whole. I find that there's too much going on. It's a little bit of a conflict, and you're really just spreading yourself too thin if you're trying to grow sort of an operating business with the company-owned units as well as your franchise units. And I think that in a lot of ways too, when you're growing a lot of company-owned locations, there's too much risk if the company-owned locations are not as well run and well managed, that it's going to negatively impact the brand. And if you're a franchisee with 3, 6, 1 location, you're pouring your heart and your soul and your resources into it. It's not fair for the franchisor to have a few high impact, high volume markets like New York, and then that could be interfering with the way people experience and think about the brand. So I'm pretty dead set. Of course, things could change in 5 years, 10 years. It's so hard to know, right, what the future, and opportunities might be. But I feel pretty strongly like, what is really deeply fulfilling and is strategically the way forward is really stopping here. A couple of our existing units are just a little bit older models, and again, we've been operating for quite some time. So a big part of opening a third location is we did want a little bit more space so that we can hold our training and things like that, and really be able to have a flagship in a place to really be able to showcase what Pure Glow's going forward will look like and feel like, and things like that.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.